We are well into the winter months now, and you can feel it, can't you? That urge to get away. Maybe some beach time to warm up those bones of yours, maybe a hockey, sports kind of road trip. Well, when you pack your bags, make sure you don't forget Alberta Blue Cross. There's only one thing better than sharing memories, and that's making new ones. Alberta Blue Cross travel insurance protects your memories and more, wherever travel takes you. Visit ab.bluecross.ca/travel for more information. Alberta Blue Cross, celebrating life's memorable moments inspired by hockey.
Hey guys, it's Pinder chatting about Charm Diamond Centers. Did you know that Charm's been Canadian owned and operated since 1972? And there's over 85 locations coast to coast to coast with Charm and their sister brands. Get this now. You want to get something custom made? How about custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks? That's unreal. That is the Charm Masterpiece program, and they've got unbeatable pricing policies as well. Whether it's mine diamonds or Canadian lab-grown diamonds, check them out. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. That's charmdiamondcenters.com.
All right, gang, listen up. It's time to learn the pro pose. Coach?
Bend and snap.
Beautiful form. Nice arm extension. Facial expression. Could use some work. All right, let's see it. The pro pose. What's that guy doing?
I think that's the bend and snap.
That's a whole different deal. Charm, home of the pro pose. Oh!
Wendy's is letting you win real food with your fantasy teams this year and Daily Face-Off. For those of you who smoke the competition, Wendy's is rewarding you with weekly prizes that'll have you winning despite your lack of team-building skills. Download the Wendy's app and score yourself 150 bonus reward points on your first order. Grab a sweet victory from the mouth-watering jaws of defeat, along with some fresh, never-frozen beef. Sign up to play Daily Face-Off to win weekly prizes like the spicy chicken sandwich from Wendy's and the Wendy's app.
And now back to Afterburner.
So something not that chill happened this afternoon. If you thought the Florida game was ugly, this was worse. Big day for Team Tank. Calgary gets shot down in flames by the Carolina Hurricanes 7-2. That is the most goals Calgary has allowed in a single game this season. The Flames don't register a shot for almost 17 minutes in the first period, while Carolina kind of piled it on with odd man rush after odd man rush. But we're here to get through it together. Pike, emotionally versus physically tired, how would you split that for the Flames today?
I mean, we'll file this under the same kind of result we saw against Florida, where to reuse a phrase we used the other day, some games are just going to be like this, where the Carolina Hurricanes are a wagon. They're well constructed. They are the kind of hockey team the Calgary Flames would like to be when they grow up. And unfortunately, the Flames are beginning the process of hopefully building a Carolina-esque hockey club. And the beginning is a little messy sometimes. And I think that's the best way of phrasing this game. It was a little messy. Say that
about this game now, because they're missing a few very key players that I think the Flames would like to be a big part of this team moving forward.
They didn't have Pospisil, and Pospisil has his way of dragging his group, kicking and screaming into games. Connor Zary might be the most poised player with the puck in the organization right now, and they definitely miss them. You get some depth issues without them, but it's also, if they could have had everyone and they could have been playing on a couple days rest, and they probably still would have had a tough time with this Carolina group. And unfortunately, the Flames had another kind of iffy start. I think their first shot on goal officially was at like 15-19 of the first period from player of the game.
Something.
It was 15 or 14. Either way, it took them a while. And I think they ended up with 2 shots on goal in the first period. I think shots were 16-2, and play definitely resembled that. I think shot attempts were something like 35 or 36-6 or something. It was all Carolina early. They were very lucky to not be down, more than 2 after the first period. And then, you get that 2 early goals against in the next period. And then, by the time Brian Huska called timeout, the game was basically already over.
And the thing that really disappointed me was without Pospisil, you didn't have anyone trying to stir anything up. We had poor Braden Pahal get dummied by Brendan Lemieux.
Bless
but
his
no one
heart.
was trying to. No one was even trying to get under the skin of the Hurricanes. You know, it was almost like once after they were down. After I feel like they got the quick one, 17 seconds into the second period. That's where the Flames kind of resigned themselves to their fate.
Yeah, there was very little pushback. I think the term "resigned" is the word to use. It was very much like, all right, when's the plane? And hopefully that they had 2 games back to back where they just got off to tough starts and got behind the 8 ball, and just once you get behind a certain level, even the most optimistic Flames fan would go, oh, they didn't come back from this one. And so, they're going to have a tough week ahead, and they're going to need to figure out ways to at least, even if you don't win these games, you'll want to be able to have things that you can look back on in April or May or even training camp next year and say, okay, that's the template for how we need to play. And we've seen, I think the frustrating thing is we saw it. We saw, during that winning streak, the Flames were beating teams that, based on lineups, they should not have been able to beat. But, this is the group that went into Edmonton, and Edmonton had played the night before, but the Flames made their lives very difficult in that building and fully deserved that win. They fully deserved that win, both wins against Boston. They've played a lot of good teams and been able to, if not beat them, go down with a fight. And I think the most dispiriting thing, I think, for a lot of Flames fans is they didn't have a lot of fight in them. And granted, no Dennis Gilbert, he's a guy who's pretty scrappy. No Martin Pospisil, another guy's pretty scrappy. Paul Hall tried, but it looked like a bunch of guys that were like, oh crap, we're losing now. Crap. How long we got this thing?
Big gulp, hey? See you later.
Yeah, it's one of those days.
And I will say, playoffs are pretty well and truly out of reach now. The official math, they can finish with a maximum of 103 points. They need to win about 14 and a half games of the final 18 to hit that theoretical 96-point mark. But even if you're just solely focused on the draft right now, what you want to be doing is losing right. Like those games where you do give a team a really good, hard run for their money. And even if they get a bunch past you, you can still be playing with heart and trying things and getting some more shots on net than they did. So this wasn't, they're playing with the same time. It's back to back. They did have daylight savings working against them. And it just didn't look like there was a lot of emotional buy-in, but also a lot of exhaustion at that point.
I just did some quick math. If Vegas goes 500, if Vegas just completely throws into cruise control and goes 500, they would be able to finish with a maximum of 93 points. The Flames would need to play 722 hockey to make it in for a team that's sort of at the Flames' best. If you dump out that first 10 games and say, October don't count. The game started to count November 1st. Who cares about October? The Flames at their best were a 570 team. So the Flames would need to without 4 significant players and with a bunch of guys who are probably just feeling the bumps and bruises and exhaustion of everything this year has been, they would need to play 722 hockey. It ain't impossible, but if that happens, I think we're getting an accordion solo from Cami because it would be extremely unlikely. And I don't think you're going to need to do your accordion warm-ups. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's learn how to make a sad sound with it. One thing I was kind of hoping to see, obviously, the Sportsnet crew, the technical crew couldn't make it there today. So we had the Bally Sports broadcast, I'm always interested to see what the opposing teams broadcasts look like across the league. And overall, I thought it was actually pretty good. But I really wanted to see a reaction shot from the Flames at the end, and we did not get that because it was they had to show the storm surge, which is the Viking clap today. But they were off the ice fast, but I do wish we could have gotten a hint of the reaction there.
Yeah, it's basic. This seems like back-to-back, like burn the tapes, go to the bus, get the hell home kind of thing. Because there was a lot to dislike about the last 48 hours of Flames games, unfortunately. And, coming after that Tampa game where there was a lot to like, and granted, spade a spade, Tampa was not good for the first half of that game. But again, much like the Edmonton game, much like the games against Boston, I thought the Flames did as much to make those guys' lives difficult as they did. And, Carolina was real good in the first period. They were, they made a lot of good plays. Case in point that, the fake shot play that Braden Pahal bid on that 2-on-2,
the pump fake.
the pump, it's such a good move. And most NHLers, that's a kind of move that you'd pull off. And if it don't work, you're going to look like a complete fool for trying it, but it worked and it turned into a really good scoring chance and a goal. But it was the kind of game where those kind of things would go against them. I think Pahal got victimized on a bouncing dump in on the second goal where he just, by the time he figured out what the hell the puck was doing, there was a bunch of guys in black sweaters all over him and stealing the puck. So, I mean, it was not between that and the fight, it was, a not good afternoon/evening for 94. But, I don't think I think if you went up and down that Flames roster, there's not a lot of people who are looking at their body work and going, man, I had a good game. I think there's probably going to be 20 odd guys getting on the plane on the way home going, man, I need to be better if we're going to have any kind of a chance to play a decent game against Colorado on Tuesday.
And then we just got to see what high-end talent Carolina has. I still enjoyed watching that hockey game because Sebastian Aho is nasty. And Seth Jarvis became the top scoring defenseman in their franchise history today. He passed Justin Falk with 259 points. So Brent Burns still got it.
Freddie Anderson looked good outside of that one. That I felt so bad for Freddie Anderson, his first home game in 1,000 years, and the puck. He basically got an assist on Sharon Govich's goal, which, I mean, if you're a Flames fan, you've seen Markstrom on occasion and Mike Smith frequently do those types of things. So I think the level of sympathy for a lot of Flames fans is rather low for Freddie Anderson. But considering, he had to be very patient and work back from that blood clotting issue he had, and he's, he worked hard to get back, and he's been so patient, and then that's what happens to you. I think he's very fortunate that it wasn't in a more consequential game, because can you imagine if that goal on that play was actually meaningful in this hockey game? That he would have had nightmares about that.
I mean, if that game was that tight, he wouldn't have passed across the crease to begin with.
Fair.
Wouldn't have been the play. Wouldn't have been the play. But good for Freddie Anderson. I'm sure he'll be a Masterton nominee this year.
There's a few good ones this year, I think.
There are, and I hope Shillington wins it.
We'll see. We'll see what happens when the nominees are announced.
We'll see. Now, Shillington is a silver lining for this team, and there's always something good to pull out of it. So we'll take a look at our Betway highlight of the night. You can get the Betway app on your phone and bet the responsible way with Betway. Let's take a look at that. I don't think you can take out Dryden Hunt right now.
That's the big question. I mean, Martin Pospisil's suspension is officially over. He's eligible to return on Tuesday, and I would expect him to. Connor Zary is on the injury reserve list. He was eligible to return as of this morning. He wasn't on the road trip, so I assume he'll be activated when the Flames return home. And so, there's no more roster limits, so the Flames don't necessarily need to move anyone out. But in terms of lineups, they only have 20 guys they can dress, and they're going to have some questions. I mean, I think Dryden Hunt has definitely been, I know he's sort of a lightning rod from a lot of fans in terms of oh, what the hell's Dryden Hunt doing there? Dryden Hunt's doing the best he can. Dryden Hunt, in the grand scheme of things, probably isn't one of the 12 most talented skaters the Flames have available to them, but bless his heart, he's working his butt off, and that kind of play is the reason why he's been able to stay in the lineup and stay. If you need someone to move up in the rotation, he's become a favorite of Ryan Huska this year, dating back to his early stint. He made the team out of camp because he's shown the ability to sort of make those types of plays from time to time, and he scored that really nice goal against Edmonton that ended up being the game winner at Rogers Place that night. Mm-hmm. And this one, the Flames were down 4-rip and needed a spark, and he was trying his best. I would say, to steal a phrase, Dryden Hunt is trying his best. And maybe ultimately he's their 13th best forward, 14th best forward. You know, if the team's fully healthy and everyone's playing to their capabilities, he's probably a spectator more often than not. But he's also 27 going on 28 years old, and he knows what he is, and he kind of knows what he needs to do to be useful to the Flames when he gets in. And, you know, I think he was full marks tonight. He was one of the few guys that probably had more positives than negatives to speak of.
You know, he wasn't their 13th best forward tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys. I think if there's a few guys that deserve to be called out on the carpet by the coaching staff for how their games went, I think Dryden Hunt is very low on that list, and because of plays like this. And I agree with you, Mangiapane. He hasn't scored as many goals, I think, as he would like to, but
he's been around it, which is why
pucks keep going in. Pucks go in for his teammates when he's on the ice. And I think part of the reason is if he's like that kind of play, he blows a tire and suddenly he doesn't have a step on the defender anymore. He goes, oh, he does. And he just sort of shuffles it over. It's such a smart little play, but he notices that he has Shillington with speed coming to the neutral zone. And if Mangiapane is more selfish in that play, there's no goal. They probably don't even get into the offensive zone if Mangiapane is thinking goal or I'm going to get a scoring chance or me all the way. Instead, he makes the unselfish play. And as a result, they, we're not talking about the Flames getting shut out. We're talking about 2 goals for the Flames.
But you know, I bet if you looked at this year, Mangiapane has probably the worst record on breakaways and partial breakaways because it feels like he has one almost every game and it just hasn't been working out for him. He had one this game, is it first or second period, where Jalen Chatfield,
I think it was the first period.
Chatfield made a great play to, just muscle him off the puck. So the puck just goes like flying across the crease. No one's there. It's not a problem. And Mangiapane just goes like right into the goalpost. So like that is very difficult to do without, getting the stick in your opponent's hands or tripping them up. So just unlucky, but good for Chatfield on that one.
Mangiapane, bless his heart, he's got big Paul Byron energy this year, and he can't bury anything. But I think the nice thing is like he's around it and he's creating stuff, and as a result, like I think if you roll back the tape and you look at how many goals Blake Coleman or Michael Backlund have this year, I think, much like the 21-22 season where, we saw monster offensive years from Tkachuk and Gaudreau, a lot of those plays started with Lindholm doing something smart. A lot of the plays that end up in scoring chances for Mangiapane's line mates start with him doing something smart. And, if you're around it long enough, eventually your luck turns. But, you just feel kind of bad for him because if he was god awful, I think we'd be like, I guess he doesn't have it anymore. But he's still around it. And I think that's the perplexing part. He's just, I think maybe maybe he's cursed this year. Maybe his luck is turned. Maybe he used up all his puck luck a couple years ago when he scored 35, but he made some good plays in this game, and especially in that goal.
And we'll give Yegor Sharangovich his flowers. That's goals in 3 straight games. He now takes the team scoring lead with 27. He was right not to celebrate that one too much, but you know what? Next year, when we look back on his scoring totals, we're not going to be. There's
quite a few replays on SportsCenter these days of guys missing those kind of tap-ins. He was given a freebie, and instead of doing something silly, he's just like, all right, I'll just take it. Fine, thank you.
And who knows, if you miss those, someone might just go all the way back and score a winner or a game tire. Is that what it was?
Yeah, the empty netter that went the other way?
Yeah.
What a glorious history that franchise has.
Anyway, that is our Betway highlight of the night, and we have something special going on right now. You can't hear about this on social media. You can only hear about this here. So with Betway now, you can get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. So you can make a new account, scan the QR code on the screen, and redeem your bonus. So you can place a bet. There's no minimum amount required, and if it loses, you'll get a refund up to $200, and then you can use that money to bet on your favorite sport. And that is open to everybody outside of Ontario. How about that? So, obviously not the greatest showing for Dan Vladar. I thought he looked pretty good early. He made 3 consecutive tight saves against Svechnikov, which probably if, we didn't have if we didn't have the Hunt goal, that probably would have been my highlight of the night. But then just, God, there were so many 2-on-1s. 3-on-2s as well.
Yeah, like there was I think that the fifth goal to me was the weirdest one, where it's like they finally get that goal, they get on the board, they're like, okay, tons of hockey left, maybe you can score 3 more. Sure, we've seen the Flames score 3 goals in rapid fire fairly frequently this year. All right, let's see what happens. A couple of minutes after that, Uyghur got caught up in the neutral zone pinching, and then Anderson defending against Svechnikov and Sebastian Aho, the forward, not the defenseman of the Islanders. And yeah, it was just one of those games where anytime they turned the puck over, it turned into an odd man rush against. And at a certain point, Dan Vladar can't do everything. He's a decent NHL goalie. He is no Jacob Markstrom. Unfortunately, it'd be nice if they had 2 Jacob Markstroms. They could have played 2 Jacob Markstroms on a night like tonight. It might not have made a difference, but I was every time they came in, it was like multiple bodies. And, I think this is the kind of game where at least this was the game. I think none went in off his defenseman. And we saw Markstrom have goals in each of the last 2 games going off defenseman, not this time, but everything else went wrong for the Flames in the defensive zone at times in this one.
Yeah, and then we really saw some of the forward line struggle. The Huberdeau, Sharangovich, Coronado combination didn't muster a shot for. They had 7 against. And then we had Peltier, Sharangovich, Huberdeau. They mustered 2 shots, but then they allowed 4 against as well. So that was some pretty tough sledding for the forward group.
Was anyone good in terms of the 4 groups? Like, who was the least bad of the 4 groups, you think?
Least bad. Okay, I'm flipping between natural stat trick and the game sheet right now to see. All right.
I'm kind of defaulting to, like, who was it? It was Backlund, Mangiapane, Hunt was the combination on the ice for the goal that they scored against a goalie who was trying to stop them. And like, I guess by default they spent more time in that defensive zone visually than they didn't. But like, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like everyone's stats are straight up detrimental except for Dryden Hunt's.
The catalyst, Dryden Hunt, going from line to line, trying to drag everybody up to respectability.
I mean, everyone else was just on the ice for some goals.
Yeah, I mean, third game in however many nights, it was the same for Carolina. Oh, they played the night before and traveled. So did Carolina. Carolina played in New Jersey, had a win, played pretty well. They were down and they battled and they got some nice goals and they won. And then they came home and did the same thing basically. So I mean, good for Carolina. I'd say that good for Carolina. Like they've they got that. I think this is three wins in 3 games for them. I think Anderson returned in Montreal on Thursday, his first start since November, and he was good in that game. Then they're back. Actually, they're carrying 3 goalies, which is hilarious to me. But I think Kochetkov started yesterday and got a win. Anderson started today, gets a win. Spencer Martin is doing his level best to make sure that the gate stays open and closed in appropriate times. And I don't think they got too many men penalties last 2 days. So, Spencer Martin's doing his job too. I mean, good for Carolina. They're a good team. They got 84 points. They're up there amongst the top teams in the Eastern Conference. They're going to be a tough out, especially, they haven't even played. Don't have a Jake Gensel healthy yet. Once he gets healthy though, like we talked about our furrow brows going, who would the Flames take out of the lineup to bring the 2 guys back? If you're Carolina, after playing a game like this and playing the games they played like this, who's losing their lineup spot to Jake Gensel? Because somebody good is going to be sitting because Jake Gensel needs a spot. And Jack Drury, who's a pretty good NHLer, also wasn't playing today because he got hurt last game. So
and Kuznetsov was everywhere. He looked great today. He just didn't end up on the score sheet. He had one that looked like it was going to.
Kuznetsov is their 4th line center. He's the guy they need to work around.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, we're going to take a minute to gather ourselves. We'll take a break and then we'll come back. We've got your DoorDash hungry for more. We've got the road ahead and we'll take your burning questions /rants/observations. Stay with us, friends.
Greta, it's our home away from home for Afterburner. We'll be there for live watch parties throughout the season. Should be your spot regardless. Before, during, and after the game, grab a cocktail, something from the menu, let the games begin, or maybe you get into the game yourself. Over 50 arcade games from vintage to state-of-the-art. Load up some credits on that Greta game card of yours and get at it. Greta Calgary, located at 213 10th Avenue Southwest. Check them out online, gretabar.com.
You know the Grey Eagle Resort and Casino is the go-to place to watch Flames and other televised sports action, but St. Patrick's Day is coming, and get ready for a St. Patrick's extravaganza like no other. Join us on March 17th for a day filled with fun and festivities. Kick off the celebrations with our exciting slot tournament. Registration at 2, tournament begins at 3. You can test your luck and win amazing prizes. Don't miss their Irish-themed lunch buffet from 11 until 2:30 and their Irish-themed dinner buffet from 5 until 10 p.m. Then get ready to dance and sing along to live music from 8 till midnight. The talented Morrissey's Private Stock is all lined up to keep the party going all night long. And of course, what's St. Patrick's Day without some green beer? Raise a glass and toast to the luck of the Irish. Mark your calendars and join us for a day filled with Irish charm and entertainment. See you on March 17th at the Grey Eagle. If you're thinking of buying or selling your home in the Calgary area, there's one guy you've got to talk to. That's Derek Newman of the Derek Newman Real Estate Group with CIR Realty. Buying or selling doesn't really matter. Derek does it all. He's a volunteer in the community, active in sports around the city, whether it's golf, curling, huge Flames fan. So talking sports or talking about the real estate market, definitely give him a shout. He's approachable, trustworthy, and hardworking. Also, Derek's got a pretty vast network. He's even got access to some homes often that aren't even on the market yet. And you can ask him about his complimentary home staging consultation as well. Buying or selling, call him or text him right now at 403-619-6661. Derek will make it easy for you. Get Derek and his network to work for you. That's Derek Newman. Email him at dnewman@cirrealty.ca. More post-game reaction right here. We're back on Afterburner.
Great minds think alike. We hit that break and we both went and looked up the exact same thing, which is what are the Wranglers doing right now? Not good, gang. Not good. Not good. One Clark Bishop took a kneeing major 10 minutes into the game. So the Wranglers are down 2-0 to the Ontario Reign right now. They're sitting 6th in the Pacific standings. It's like a 4-team tie for 4th place, but it's goal differential and whatnot to put them in that spot. We do have Riley Damiani, who came to the Flame system from Dallas in the Tanev trade. We have Adam Klapka's got a 4-game point streak. He's got 6 points with 3 goals and 4 assists in that span. And Cole Schwint recently recorded his 100th AHL point. And Dustin Wolf, his stats obviously will change after tonight, but as of now, he's second in the league in save percentage, 924, and a 20-10-3 record. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he has 4 shutouts as well.
I believe that's correct. And despite spending the better part of a month and a half in the NHL during the various absences of the other 2 goalies, he's I think top 4, top 5 in terms of minutes played in the American League. So it's been a year for Dustin Wolf. He's gotten some new and unique experiences, and he's also seen, much like the Calgary Flames have, several of his best teammates being, sort of yoinked away from him to the NHL level and to various other places. So, they've had a lot of injuries too. A lot of injuries. I think right now they're shy. I think they're missing either 2 or 3 defensemen. I think Mark Pysyk returned, played a couple games, and then disappeared again. And the Wranglers have been pretty good at disclosing injuries, but sometimes they sort of have regularized updates. So Solovyov is injured. Brady Lyle is still injured. I'm operating on the assumption, disclaimer, my assumption, that Pysyk is injured again, unfortunately. And, so it's, if everyone's healthy, that's a fairly deep defensive group with a lot of different looks available. And if they're not healthy, they kind of look like this. And, I have a feeling that we'll see before too long, Misters Pelche and Coronado back down there. We bugged, and by we, I mean me, because I'm the person who loves bugging Craig about these things. At the press conference on Friday, I asked Craig Conroy, the GM, hey, who's going down? and he said they papered Coronado and Pelche down. I don't think there was a formal announcement, but he told us, and Cap Friendly told me it happened. So Craig didn't lie to us. He wouldn't lie to us. He's too nice. But the reinforcements are on the way for the Wranglers, but it's going to be...
Yeah, you want to talk about someone who's quick? Jan Kuznetsov took a penalty in the Carolina game, made it all the way back to Calgary for the Wranglers game.
He's hustling. I'm a Kuznetsov guy. He's
I'm kidding, of course. There was a mistake on there was a mistake on the burn on the broadcast that said, instead of Andrei Kuzmenko, it said Jan Kuznetsov took a tripping penalty. That wasn't actually a penalty. Fairly early in the game.
It's like they combined players and then just said, this sounds like a guy who's on one of these teams. Let's just put it in there. So it's afternoon games are tough. Sunday afternoon games are tough for the broadcasters too. Yeah.
Matinees, never good, as Rhett says. And also, I saw this pop up in the comments at some point today. The jacket is gone. We have a theory on where it is. And if it's correct, it's in Finland.
I thought it was in Boomer's closet with Frank's jacket.
The one he wore on Kipper's retirement night?
Yeah, my theory is just Boomer's collecting jackets.
Oh, okay. Well, our theory is that Kipper's got sticky fingers.
I can see that too. I think it looks like it'd be a style.
I mean, I think he would just be there for the chaos. But I digress because I know you really want to talk about this. We're going to get to our DoorDash Hungry for More. You know how it works. Restaurants, groceries, pharmacies, everything in between. Open the app, choose what you want from where you want, and your items left outside your door at the default contactless delivery setting. Through Double Dash, you can order from multiple places in the same order without extra delivery fees, so everyone gets what they want and need. I think we both would like to see more from special teams at this point.
I mean, the penalty kill was okay. They didn't have to do very much, and I think I would argue that the penalty kill has been, they're still top 5 in the league despite getting lit up from time to time the last couple months. They're I think top 5 and deservedly so. During the last few years, the PK has been one of the few things that's consistently looked fairly decent to above average on the team. Power play was 29th or 30th in the league this year. It was a little bit better last year.
Tonight, the penalty kill held Carolina without a goal on their lone power play.
I mean, Carolina's got a top. I think Carolina, something like top 5.
You're skipping around what we need to be talking about right now, Ryan.
Carolina is pretty good everywhere. Their power play, I think, is top 5. So keeping a top 5 power play off the board is pretty good. But this is the type of game where if you got nothing going on, much like they did against Tampa, or much like they did against Florida, they haven't had a lot of good even strength games last little while. You need your power play to bail you out, and it just has not been something that has given them momentum this year. We've heard Huska go out of his way.
It's been a detriment, quite frankly.
He's gone out of his way to mention that the power play has cost them games, like multiple times this season. And that is kind of worrying, considering that if you're a team entering a retool, reconfiguration, strategic retreat, wherever the hell you want to call it, you kind of need to have something to lean on to bail you out in games. And it almost always has to be your power play. And a bunch of guys that did not look comfortable with the puck at 5-on-5 looked pretty uncomfortable with the puck at 5-on-4. And as a result, they didn't really get much of anything out of their power play. So, I mean, they got 18 games left. I think they need to do some tinkering, preventative, presumptive tinkering on their power play, because it ain't good. It ain't good.
Well, we're in agreement on that one. That is our DoorDash Hungry for More. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off and no delivery fees on their first order of $15 on more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code NATION25. Dash it for the win. So, second game for Daniil Miramanov. He does finish a -2, but because he's playing on the second power play unit, he does end up with, again, more than 20 minutes of ice time, which is a tall order for a guy coming back from a significant injury and in a new system. He didn't really stand out to me in a negative way, despite kind of what that stat line says.
Yeah, he seemed fine. I mean, I'll give the coaching staff credit. I mean, once it looked like they were out of it, they did basically they shuffled their lines, but they just rolled their lines. And it's the kind of game where if you're like, listen, Uyghur and Anderson had a rough game against Tampa. They had a rough first half of the game, especially against I mixed up my Florida teams. Yesterday, they weren't very good. They were also not very good the first half of this game. So it's the type of game where you're like, you know what? Let's see some handling of Miramanov. Why the hell not? They figured they knew they know what they have in Anderson and Uyghur. They're good. They have not been good last couple of games, but I would not deign to say that they're bad hockey players because the body of evidence suggests otherwise. You don't really know what the hell Miramanov is. And Hanley is, at the very least, a good 7, a decent 6, but what else can he be? So, I think we discussed the idea of what do they do with their forwards. I'm really curious what they do with their defense, because this could be the kind of situation if you're like, listen, you're going to be in tough against the teams you're playing going forward anyway, based on who you've lost. You might as well try to learn something over these games, make it some sort of a useful endeavor, and figuring out what you need to do to get, figure out what Miramanov is. You got a couple of years to work with him and figure him out, and maybe you can unlock something with him, because they managed to do that with Sharon Govich. And so I think figure out how you did that with Sharon Govich and do with the other guys. And,
yeah, and they're at a point where they do have nothing to lose. I saw a comment about Huska not being an NHL level coach. This one's not on Ryan Huska. He lost his best defense pairing, and a big way that he sent messages to players this year is by managing their ice time. He does not have the horses to do that right now, and he has been able to find things that work for players like Sharon Govich. So I think grace on that one for Ryan
Agreed.
Huska. And, now that playoffs are but a glint in the stars above, they have some opportunities to work on some things. And that's where you can set yourself up for some positive momentum for next season.
Yeah, I mean, you got 18 games. Are you going to win all of them? Probably not. Are you going to win enough to get in? Probably not. But can you use the 18 games they have left to, what's Coronado got to figure out the NHL level? Probably some things. Is there another level to Zari's game? Probably. What does he need to work on this summer? I don't know. They can figure that out.
Did you see what Mark Mathot tweeted today?
Mark Mathot tweets a lot of things, so no. It was
along the lines. It was directed at the Senators, but it was along the lines of, this team, these players better not post anything on social media that shows them like vacationing or having fun this summer. The things they post should just be training and practicing, things along that line, because it has been so disappointing from the Sens this season. So I think the Flames don't want to go out on that kind of note. So there's still plenty of games left for them to just like put some positive efforts forward that can let them go into the off season with their heads held high.
In the comments, KQ coined the phrase "lose in style," and I think that's kind of what you got to do. It's like
lose the right way. Lose the right way.
You want guys, even if your season ends after game 82, you want guys to head into the summer feeling like they have some things they can build off of. You don't want to get your heads kicked in for 18 games, but you want to do what you can to go into that summer feeling like, okay, like I'll say this, the 13-14 Flames were a team that did not win a lot, but they were able to build an identity and build some momentum. And they went into that summer and came into camp with a chip on their shoulders. And you kind of want to figure out, okay, obviously the personnel is the personnel. You can't, do much more than you have with the personnel you have. So that's a Craig Conroy problem. If you're Huska, your job is to do what you need to do to make these guys feel like they can have a useful summer and be better in the fall. So,
and a couple people have brought it up now. So some levity. Things got crazy with Minnesota today.
And
So
we
fun.
learned
Like,
we
okay,
learned
so
rule
Nashville
stuff.
ties it up. Like at the last, we were learning today. So Nashville like ties it up late in the game to force overtime. And what does Minnesota do? They yank the damn goalie.
Wild win it in overtime.
You can't even be mad if you're Nashville.
Holy jumping. What great execution.
Of course,
That's
you're
just-
a man who knows smart
that's ballsy.
things. So why was that an especially risky move for Minnesota? Explain the rules.
Oh goodness, Cami, it's nice of you to lie like that. I appreciate that. So two things. One, so Minnesota is currently the 9th place team. They're attempting to chase down Vegas. So two things of note. The first tiebreaker is regulation wins. The second is regulation overtime wins. So if the goalie is, you can have a better chance of winning if you have more guys in overtime. But the way the rule is written, if you pull your goalie during 3-on-3 overtime and they score on you, you lose the loser point in their season. But John Hines betting on his guys, going, you know what, boys, let's win this in regulation, or let's win this before the shootout, and throwing out 4 forwards. So I mean, if it doesn't work, he looks like quite the fool. And apparently post-game, Mike Russo on social media was talking to some players, and the Minnesota players did not know that rule. They did not know that if they lost with the empty net, they would have lost the extra point. Their coach knew. That's why he did it. But the players did not know. So, that is the boldest of bold moves. And, of course, appropriately enough, who scored the game-winning goal? Boldy. So, well done, Wild. Well done.
What do they say on the bench? They're just like, all right, aye, Captain.
I mean, you gotta. When in doubt, the coach would probably fall on his sword for that, being like, "Sorry, boys, that's on me." But I mean, we already saw a Super Bowl this year where the players on the field apparently did not know the overtime rules. So why not a Nashville, Minnesota regular season game?
I mean, do you really think they've ever sat down and read the rule book? I would bet 90% of beat reporters haven't done that.
I missed a Gary Bettman press conference during the playoffs once.
As needed basis.
Yeah. When Rasmus Anderson got thrown out of a playoff game for getting into a secondary fight, I missed a Bettman press conference because I was upstairs reading through the rule book going like, wait, is that an auto suspension? That's an auto suspension, right? It was not an auto suspension. I did check.
Oh, was this the one he did it in the first period?
Yeah. Of like the game where there was like all the fights at the end of the first period.
That was the game where Bettman got stuck in the elevator at the Saddle Dome.
Because they forgot to hit the button.
No, it was too full. Because it stopped and the game came back, and a couple people had this is post game for the record. Everybody has piled out of the press box from both ends. There's one elevator to get right to the basement, and of course, Bettman and a couple people cram into the first one. The doors close, it doesn't go anywhere, and then it opens again and some people get out. And as the doors are closing, he just says, "You guys need a new building." And it was so menacing. And I don't know which executive it was, but one of the top people for the Flames behind us just went,
Okay.
It was quite a night.
To be fair, that elevator ain't great in the best of times, let alone when you put that many people into it.
Won't bite you on that one. Alrighty, let's get going to the Village Honda Road Ahead at Northwest Auto Mall and online at villagehonda.com. They've got new inventory on the ground. Start your automotive adventures at Village Honda, where the new vehicle pricing is MSRP. So they're coming into a tough one. It's going to be a very long. Where did I write this? Sorry, I'm like scrolling through my notes now. All right, back to the Dome for the 3-game homestand. We know they've got Colorado on Tuesday. That's going to be a toughie. They just announced that they expect to have Gabriel Landeskog back for playoffs, so don't have to fret about that for Tuesday. But they do have Valeri Nichushkin back and some new faces on the roster. So that's going to be a very tough one for Calgary. I think most people are looking forward to Thursday when we see Noah Hannafin come back to the Dome for the first time since being dealt to the Vegas Golden Knights. This is just 4 Stanley Cup contenders in a row.
And then a few teams that aren't quite there.
I know. I think honestly, my pick for who's going to win the Stanley Cup is probably just going to be based on what I see from each of these 4 teams this week. It's Carolina for me right now.
Yeah, can you imagine?
I know
a
they're
Stanley
not
Cup
as
Storm
mean. I
Surge,
know they're
though?
not
That'd
as
be fun.
mean. What's that?
Can you imagine a Stanley Cup final Storm Surge though? That'd be fun.
I would not be mad at seeing Carolina win. I've liked Carolina for several years now.
I'm sure there's a lot of fans in this market who enjoy Carolina for things they did in 2006.
Yeah, funny how that works. So you mentioned that we have some contenders and some not so contenders. It's the Habs visiting on Saturday. Always fun when you're playing an original 6 team. And then the Flames wrap up the homestand against Washington on Monday. You know, fans always love to see Obi.
But no Matthew Phillips.
No Matty P. On the move.
He's in demand. In Hershey.
So for you, what do you want to see from the Flames on this homestand?
Productive losses, or at the very least, productive 60 minutes of hockey. You want to be able to look back on the games, and regardless of the results, like there's going to be some nights, we opened this with mentioning there's going to be some nights that are like this, where you don't have Hanifin and Tanev to sort of provide that the safety blanket for your blue line group. You can't just throw them out every second or third shift to stabilize things. So some nights are just going to look like this. So how figure out what you got in these guys? Like, can you use Pahal in that kind of a role? Probably not right now, but you got to build them up a bit. But they have last change at home, and so you have your new guys. You have a Hotchuk coming in. I think he'll probably be playing one of these games in the homestand, if not the first one. So you have the ability to sort of just mix and match. You have that backline line you can always use and go back to, and it'll always be money. But maybe experiment a bit, shuffle up some lines. I'd love to see Coronado or Pelche or both with Backlund. I'd love to see. We saw Blake Coleman moved off that line today and sort of used in different roles. I think this is the type of stretch. You got 4 games all at home, 2 against, the Beasts, 2 against the Lesser Lights. You have the ability to be really strategic with how you use guys and figure out what you want to know and figure out what you don't know. And then, use these games to figure out. Because if you're Craig Conroy, you made the moves you had to make. You had 5 guys that weren't going to be around, and you needed to get what you needed to get for them. Okay, cool. Can Shillington be an everyday top 4 guy? I think probably. Do you have the right guy to play with him right now? I don't know. Try out a bunch of guys, see what happens. What can Coronado be at the NHL level? We've seen flashes of brilliance. Where does he need to work on? So that's a long way of saying, I want to see them get weird. I want to see them experiment. Like, I want to see mad scientist Huska over the next homestand just do some weird shit and find out new things about these guys that they don't know. Because I think finding out new things could do a lot of, go a long way to making this a productive summer for Craig Conroy and his management group. Because, we know the guys who are here, we know how they've been used in the past. You kind of know what you know about them right now, but what don't you know? What do you want to know? And what do you want to find out? The only way to figure it out is to do weird shit. So Ryan Huska, do some weird shit this week.
Okay, I'm glad you ended it saying it that way, because I'm like, all right, Craig just wants to see people get freaky. No hate, but there's lots to look forward to this week. There's the return of Hanifin, I'm sure he'll get some cheers. He'll also get some boos, I'm sure. People not big fans of his agent in particular. We're potentially going to see Sharon Govich chase 30 goals. Backlund is 2 away from 200 in his career and steadily moving up the points record. I think he's 4 points away from tying Guy Chouinard's to 529. That would be the 8th most in franchise history. So things to look forward to. And now we will get to your questions, comments, and concerns. Just got a couple here. We'll wrap it up really quickly. Let's see it, Jack. Do we think there will be some moves in the summer and some wanting to jump ship, reading into Kadri comments made after the Panthers game? I'm trying to let you take the lead on this, Pike.
I'm gonna say there's gonna be moves. Like if you look at the group that they have, they still have too many wingers. I think you kind of need to, you want to potentially build a spot for Coronado to play next year. Like as currently constructed with the top 9 they have, with the six wingers they have who are the incumbents. You have Sharon Govich, who probably should be a winger long term, playing up the middle because they don't have enough centers. They don't have enough spots for Pelche to play top 9 or Coronado. So I think you want to do some moves that makes those happen. So I think that's something to look at. So just out of necessity, that might happen. I imagine we'll see something happen with the goaltenders because, all due respect to Markstrom and Vladar, I don't think you can come back with the same tandem. You can't come back with the same tandem when, 2 years in a row missing the playoffs with the same tandem. I don't think you can bring back a third. Ignoring completely contractual situations and just focusing on these 2 guys. Are they the right 2 guys? History suggests no, because they haven't made the playoffs in either of the 2 years they've been in the battery. So you kind of have to do something based on that. And after that, I think you're willing to explore things. If you move Markstrom, what do you get for him? Do you have the ability to address your center situation with a move like that? If you get a center, does that mean that suddenly you can think about making a Kadri move? I think Kadri has, I believe, a full no trade. So it would be up to him to determine if he wants to be here. But I imagine, you are going to have those conversations, probably you might start having them now, but once game 82 is over, Craig Conway probably sits down and has a meeting with every single person on the roster, especially the veterans, and goes, okay, this is where we're going. What do you want to do? And if they're saying, cool, let's do it. Cool, let's do it. And if they're thinking, not for me, okay, cool. It's good to know. You'd rather know these things before what could be a busy off season than, just operating in the assumption that everyone's fine and hunky dory and when it's not. So, and I have a lot of respect for Nazem Kadri. I think he's been a good soldier. And if he wants to be somewhere else, all right, cool. I think that as long as he's open about what he wants and he's willing to be a pro about it, and evidence suggests that that's the case. If he's been a professional all the places he's been. That's why he was in demand when he was a free agent. I don't have a problem with him exploring something else if that's what he wants to do.
And hey, maybe, he said that when he came here that he wanted to win another cup, but maybe he does find purpose in bringing up young guys like a Pospisil and a Zary.
Yeah,
let's see another one, Jack. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and can you imagine if you're trying to teach hypothetically Sam Honzik how to play in the NHL, if you have a Kadri to mentor a kid like that, I mean, if the idea is it's all falling on Backlund, that's tough. If you have multiple guys who are willing to do that, then it makes life easier for everybody.
All right, for real this time, Jack. Should we waive Vladar and bring up Wolf to learn from Markey? He gets scooped off of waivers so fast.
It's a good way to piss off agents, though. Vladar hasn't been bad enough to if Vladar had, let's call them Eddie Lack as Flames backup numbers, the Flames waived Eddie Lack that 1 year and sent him to the minors and brought up David Riddick because Eddie Lack was a detriment to the team's chances to win on the nights he was out there. And I think even Eddie Lack would say that about his experience in Calgary. Vladar has been far from that. He's look at tonight. Dan Vladar was not the problem against the Carolina Hurricanes. He did his best. He wasn't great, but if you were looking at the reasons the Flames lost, Dan Vladar is way down the list. And I think you do yourself more harm in the long and short term. You want agents to want to send people to Calgary for an opportunity and a chance to raise their stock. Not, if you have a couple bad nights, you're going to be playing down the hall. So they bring up a kid who's played 6 games. That you want to think long-term about that.
It's a pretty unique situation, though. I don't know if people would expect this to be, agents would expect to see a goalie shafted every couple of years. Because you don't usually draft goalies who look as good in the junior and AHL levels as Dustin Wolf does. So I think it's a bit of a unique situation there.
That's fair.
I digress. All right. We just got a couple more here. Jack? Markstrom trade value about to plummet. Classic Flames. Nah. Unless, knock on wood, my desk is probably like cheap MDF, so I don't need to knock on that. But unless he gets like seriously injured, he's playing great. He's got a Vezina nom under his belt, and last season looks like an anomaly. And he still had some fantastic games that we don't really talk about from that bummer season. So if he wants to move, the demand will be there this summer.
Yeah, I have nothing substantial to add.
Connie's just keeping the asking price high as he should, as is his right.
Are we going to use the extort word, or are we going to? He has ideas for what a fair return is for a very high profile asset.
Mm-hmm. It's all right if he's all Ebenezer Scrooge on this one. Prior to the change of heart. All right, a couple more. Cami, it's me, your friend from our hometown. Can I have my dad's accordion back? One, I'm disappointed that we've known each other for so long and you can't spell my name right. But I'll give you one more chance. If it's really you, what does the tattoo on the inside of your mouth say? Answer in the comments. Do you think the Flames will be competitive before the new arena? I think it kind of depends. We have to see what goes on with the draft and what they can do with some of these incoming assets, which I think is really exciting.
I think next year could be tough because I think next year is the one where if you're going to have any of the kids get sort of put in over their skis a bit, next year will be the year. I think next year might be.
To be fair, like in terms of on ice results, I don't think people will stop watching because there'll be enough excitement around those young players in the future of the team.
Yeah, I think next year is the one where, you'll have, I think, a few nights like tonight and Saturday. But I also think that's the kind of thing where they have so many picks that you're going to be able to fill a lot of gaps and fill a lot of holes. And, there's already teams who are in cap trouble for next year, even with the $4 million bump. So they're keeping powder dry in terms of picks and cap space to take advantage of those situations. And, it's just a question of, can they have enough Sharon Govich like bets that fill their top 9 with guys that can be difference makers?
All right. Let's make this our last one, guys. Finish on a high note. If a player gets claimed after trade deadline, are they eligible for the playoffs?
No, they are not.
That's simple, hey?
That's why waivers after the trade deadline are just like such a fool's errand, because you're like, you can't use them anyway. Screw it. Just throw them on waivers. See if we care. So, but yeah.
Maybe we will see Vladar waived then. Just kidding.
Maybe.
Oh.
See, I didn't think about that. That's actually pretty clever. If you were going to do it, you might as well do it in a time where he's not going to be as useful for anybody who claims him.
Well, that just about puts a bow on it. Another stinker for the Flames. It was 7-2, but we had fun here. The Barn Burner boys are back tomorrow. Flames Nation has some big news coming up, I hear. Anything else you want to tease or set up, Ryan?
No, it's going to be a fun week. We got games to talk about, and the nice thing is a lot of new players to look at and assess and judge harshly.
Beautiful. Barn Burner's back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody.